September 1788. Now, what's significant about 216 years ago? Well, for the United States, it's when it got its government. That's right, the Constitution came into being in September 1788. Officially, it had been hammered out before this and compromised on and worked on, and the Bill of Rights added and things of this nature, but it wasn't official until then. That's when it became the law of the land. That's right, 1788, 12 years after Declaration of Independence. So, what was between those 12 years? Well, we had the first government of the United States, the Articles of Confederation. Now, here's the thing with the Constitution that most people may have heard because it goes around a lot. A lot of pundits claim that it's the absolute epitome of freedom. It's the greatest government ever because it grants freedom to everybody. But you may be interested to know, at the time, the Constitution was a conservative backlash. That's right, the Articles of Confederation, the first government of the United States, was the more liberal government, and the Constitution, what we have today, was the more conservative at the time. What was the difference? Well, let's talk about what the Articles of Confederation were. Now, the United States had a government that only loosely tied together its 13 states. Each state had a vote. They really couldn't do anything. They couldn't collect taxes. They couldn't regulate commerce. They were just a figurehead for international diplomacy, but nobody took their international diplomacy seriously because they couldn't do anything. Some people really loved this. Thomas Jefferson, for example, thought it was the greatest government ever because it didn't really have governmental control. It was much more free, liberal, and what they were going for, right? They didn't have taxes. That was the biggest gripe with the British, and so the Articles of Confederation were built so the federal government couldn't tax. But therein lied the problem. They had a lot of debts after the war. They had a lot of commerce issues. They had to set up laws. They had to have tariffs, which were a big part of economics back then. And they couldn't do any of those things. So, well, they had to go a bit more traditional, a bit more centrally government. Had to come into place. They couldn't really go with the Articles for very long, especially in the condition the United States was in. So, we got the Constitution, and it was a much more conservative version of the same government. It let the federal government limit commerce. It let them control tariffs. It let them implement taxes. Now, they weren't going too far with it. It was still a much looser government than most of the European governments, which were heavily centralized. But it was much more centralized than the first American government, and therefore a bit of conservative backlash against the Articles of Confederation. One of the major things that caused this to happen was Daniel Shays' rebellion. Yeah, people actually got so mad and up in arms about the Articles of Confederation government being unable to do anything, they went into rebellion. So, founding fathers, with other minds now, James Madison specifically, as one of the major writers of the Constitution, got together and said, we need a better government, a stronger government. And, well, of course, some people weren't for this. There were the anti-federalists. Thomas Jefferson was actually initially one of the major anti-federalists. He hated the idea of a strong central government. So what do you do to appease him? Well, you put something very liberal in with a very conservative Constitution. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, allowing individual liberties and rights. So people cannot be crushed individually by the federal government and, in theory, the states as well. Now, the Constitution has changed a lot since it was first put together in 1788, but this is what it was. It wasn't the most liberal document of the day. We'd already had that, and it failed. It failed as a government. Our government had failed. So we were forced to draw it back in a little bit. The United States had to become a bit more conservative. So next time you're watching TV and you hear pundits say that this is the most free and open and liberal government in the history of mankind, it's not even the most free and open and liberal government in the history of the United States. Just something for your historical perspective.